So you just decided to launch your first Google Ads campaign. You did some keyword research, you put your ad copy together, you put all your billing information, you convinced yourself that this is going to be worth it, and I'm willing to spend your hard-earned money to actually advertise on Google. You launch everything, and then nothing. No impressions, no clicks, no costs, no phone calls, no anything. What happened? Maybe you try and contact Google support. Maybe they get back to you. Maybe they don't. Maybe they say you have to wait a little bit to actually see ads. Well, do you? Not so fast. David Feldman-Makrias, we're going to talk about exactly what to do if your ads are not running on Google and what you can do to fix it. There's a couple tricks that you can do, but first what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the things that you should look at first. This is more of the basics. But if you've exhausted all of your options, then what I'm going to tell you to do is actually wait till the end of the video, or you can skip forward to the little bonus section. Okay? The bonus section will include my trick to actually springboard your Google ads, regardless if your Google support reps say that they can't be live, or you've tried everything else and you're running out of options, but you really want to get your campaigns up. This trick has worked for me probably for a decade, and I have to use it often. It's something that we can quickly and easily do to spur the Google algorithm to look at a new Google ad account. So without further ado, let me get into the basics. All right, so what I'm looking at right now is what's called the change history, and I'm going to show you a live example of what I'm talking about so you can see that I actually go through the same struggles that everybody else does. My team, the agency we work with, I mean, we all go through these struggles, right? Google Ads is a living, breathing thing, as I like to say, so it's not a simple science. So the change history shows you when I've actually done things in the ads account. If you want more on the change history and why that's useful, let me know in the comments. But this shows here that I actually started making adjustments, increasing budget, and finalizing all the stuff in this account on November 22nd, just a week ago. Now this is the campaign dashboard, right? And this is a brand new, fresh account, the same account we were just looking at that November 22nd change history from. And what we see here is, here's November 22nd, but I had we're looking at phone calls. Let's try and look at impressions, because impressions will give us a better view of ads actually serving. So if you look at the 22nd, this little dot represents the 22nd. Let me actually take this comparison off. So if we're looking here, if we look at the 22nd, I'm looking at impressions and cost, big fat 0. 23rd, still big fat 0, right? So Friday, Saturday, we launched these campaigns and nothing happened. Well, that's a big deal, right? We expect this to actually happen. And I was nervous because this was a holiday weekend this past weekend. And that's when, it's actually 2 weekends ago, but it was coming up to a holiday weekend, and I was nervous because I wanted to make sure this client actually spent ad dollars for the holiday. And with this, Google support, we inquired to Google support, and Google support was just saying, basically giving us the runaround. We called multiple reps. They said we had to wait more time, even though all of our ads are eligible and all this different stuff. So there's a couple things that you should know to check before you actually hit the panic button. And again, you don't have to hit the panic button anymore, because at the end of this, I'm going to show you the bonus trick that actually helps everything. But let me make sure that you actually go through the set list first, and that way you can verify that everything else is in order. Okay, so I made this quick little cheat sheet here. And first, you're going to want to verify that your billing and payment methods are active, approved, and all that good stuff. What you're going to do that is you're going to go under billing, and then you're going to go to summary or payment methods. Actually, payment methods. The summary might include something if there's a notification of it not working. But you want to check your payment methods and make sure your credit card is input correctly and everything else looks the way it should be. If something is running, you want to also make sure that nothing is in the notifications bell, because the notifications bell will actually tell you important things to get your ads to run. You also want to make sure that all of your campaigns, ad groups, ads, and keywords are all enabled. I'm not going to go through that now, but again, these are all the steps you should go through if your ads are not running. So that was number two. I kind of got into it, but you want to make sure your campaigns are active, your ad groups are active, your keywords are active, and you want to make sure that there's no negative keywords that are blocking your ads. I can't tell you how many times I've launched an account where we actually put in a set list of negative keywords. We couldn't get any ads to show, and it was actually because our negative keywords were blocking the keywords that we wanted our ads to show for. Usually the notification bell will show you that, so it's always good to check the notification bell if your ads are not running. One thing you may want to look at right away is the bid strategy. So a lot of what Google tries to push nowadays is maximize conversions and maximize conversion value as a bid strategy. I would not recommend this at first glance, especially when you open a new account. The reason being is because you don't have any conversions, right? You don't have any conversions in the account yet. You just started. So I typically opt for campaigns using max clicks because that's going to drive clicks to the website or wherever you're directing them. You can also use things, bid strategies like target impression share. I tend to stay away from that one because we don't just want to show ads. We want actually to drive traffic. So I usually go for max clicks without a bid limit, especially when launching a new account, because I don't really want to have any restrictions. Sometimes accounts, I don't use a full-fledged negative keyword list either because I want to see kind of what comes through, but that does a lot of restrictions you have, the better in the beginning, and it usually yields to better success because you can always review the search terms report to make sure that you're blocking negative keywords as your ads are starting to trigger. Anyways, so we talked about billing and payment methods. We talked about making sure everything's turned on, your campaigns, your ad groups, your keywords, and your ads. Then we talked about bid strategy. Now, daily budget has to be greater than your bid. Okay. So see here in this example, it's $15 a day. I have an average daily budget for a campaign. Now, this kind of goes with lifetime budgets as well, because you don't want your lifetime budget to be too small. But let's say in your industry, your average cost per click is $5. I'm just going to make it up. And that's why you need to do a little bit of keyword research preliminarily to make sure you know what your bids are. So let's say on average it's $5. Now, if you set your campaign at $4 a day, your ads will not run because you're effectively telling Google that you're willing to pay less than it costs for one click. Make sure your budgets, your daily budget, if you're using daily budgets, which I always recommend to do, at least for my campaign applications, make sure your daily budgets are actually higher than your bids. I'd use a 3x multiplier. If you have less than a 3x multiplier, you're only getting 3 clicks a day or less than 3 clicks, and you don't really have enough volume of traffic activity to generate conversions. So that's why I always recommend certain minimum budgets to actually generate some activity, right? So that's an important item. Make sure your daily budgets are greater than your bids. Your lifetime budgets, that's like if you're setting a budget not per day, but over the course of weeks, months, and maybe even longer. Your lifetime budgets should be longer. I just tend never to use lifetime budgets because we make too many optimization changes. So I would not recommend to use daily or lifetime budgets. I would recommend to use daily. Also, I mentioned this a little bit too with the bid strategy. Make sure your targeting is. Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind. Just kidding. Also, you make sure your targeting is big enough, right? So your targeting, what I mean by that is location targeting. Audience targeting could restrict it too, right? And that's why I layered in targeting. But most instances, especially when starting a new account, unless you're really going for mid to high funnel traffic in the marketing funnel, I wouldn't really narrow your audience pool because if you're doing search campaigns, that's going to be very keyword driven, meaning people that search for things related to your business, you're going to make your ads pop up. You don't really care at this point, at least this is what I advise my clients. You don't really care at this point whether they're 18 to 24 or 54 plus. You may have some presumption on what they would be, but you don't want to limit your targeting based on audience when you already have that limit based on what they're typing in and searching. I always recommend this because we think we know what our audience is, and then a lot of the times we're correct, but we're not always 100% sure. There's a way to actually include audiences on what's called observation mode rather than it's either narrowing or targeting, I can't remember, but it's observation. So what that means is you're not going to narrow the people that you're advertising to a specific audience. You're just going to observe, okay, the person that clicked on that keyword or a person that typed in that search term, my keyword triggered, my ad showed up, they clicked. What type of audience does Google know about them? Are they a specific age demographic? Do they have specific affinities? Are they in market for something? That's why I always promote, especially in the beginning and pretty much forever on, observation targeting, because you're learning based off of the keyword intent. It's a great way to start. So, not just with audience targeting though, location targeting as well. You want to make sure your location is big enough. So let's give an example. If I am running ads for a local dry cleaners, we want to make sure that we target their vicinity. So my default radius, because I live in Chicagoland metropolitan area, is a 15-mile radius. And that usually is good for a suburb area, local small business, maybe a budget of $1,000, $2,000 a month. Same thing with a service business that is looking to start plumbing. Maybe let's talk about a plumbing business. A plumbing business has a local service area. Maybe they don't want to go out 50 miles, but you can't just make it 2 miles, right? You need to have a big enough pool of people to actually get your ads in front of. I always think 10 to 15 miles, 12 to 15 miles is a great starting point. It's really good for metropolitan areas. I would always recommend smaller when you're really in the dense metropolitan area because you're going to hit a lot more people and there's more competition, such as Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, Dallas, Fort Worth, even Miami. Those are some of the bigger metros, maybe not Dallas, but those other four are the bigger metros within the United States. So with those, you can go down to, 5 miles, 7 miles, maybe even less, depending upon your keywords. But you got to make sure your actual geographical targeting is big enough. So now we're at that point, right? We went through all the steps. We talked about all the different things. What if you're still stuck? Maybe you say, David, I talked to Google support and they were no help. Totally get it. Billing and payments is fine. All my campaigns are active, ad groups, keywords, everything. I even tested some broad keywords in there. I don't have any negative keywords. I followed what you said by not using a maximized conversion or conversion value bid strategy. I'm using max clicks just to generate some activity, like you said. My daily budgets far exceed my cost per click, and I'm using daily budgets. My targeting is big enough. I don't have any narrowing on my audience, and my location geographical targeting is big enough, and none of my ads are disapproved or keywords are disapproved for any reason. Okay, well, now we're getting into the main reason for this video, because in my example that I'm showing you, right, this account that I launched just a couple weeks ago, this example, I had to use this awesome trick, okay? The trick is pretty simple. Whatever your budget is, in this instance, it's $30 a day. You're going to, what I call it, jack it up. And that's basically it. So instead of $15 a day, I put $50 a day. And I did that for both of these campaigns. And guess what? Because I said, hey, Google, I'm willing to spend a lot of money. Get me traffic. I know my account is okay. Get me traffic. Guess what happened? On the first day, we got 158 impressions for $87. Now, that's really not that efficient, right? I mean, now we're getting impressions in $154 for $39 a day, and we're getting more and more efficient as the days goes on. But I just wanted the ads to start. And when they start, then it's more likely that they are going to work. So you blow $20 or $30 in the first couple days extra, maybe a day, to get your ads running. I think it's worth it. This client has a budget where we make it worth it and we get them results as quickly as we can. So that's your trick. if you follow all my advice, you should have success. And again, I always gear account builds towards search campaigns, starting with search because it's the highest intent, lowest funnel. So you should be able to pick up some more immediate results. So again, that bonus tip, increase the budget exponentially, right? Maybe not to $1 million or $1,000, but multiplier of 3 or 4, right? $15 a day, multiplier by 4 was $60. $60 per day, or whatever I put it to, 50 or whatever the number was, it actually helped. And within 2 hours, I had impressions and I actually could see it. So that was pretty good. That's my trick and tip for today, everybody. Hopefully this helps. Let me know in the comments if you have any further questions about Google Ads. Meta ads and other programs often work similarly. Ad platforms work similarly. So if you're feeling some of these, lackluster ad campaign launches, maybe try some of the tips that I mentioned today. Thank you so much. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you very soon. David Feldman-Makrias. See you next time.